A very good evening to one and all present here. With me on this call, I have Dr. Trivikraman Thampy, or Vikram as he is fondly called. Vikram is an engineering alumnus of IIT Bombay and has a PhD in economics from New York University. Vikram is also the co-founder and co-CEO of Games 24/7, India's most valuable multi-game platform, headquartered in Mumbai with offices in Bangalore, New York, New Delhi, Miami, backed by investors including Tiger Global, Rain Capital, and Malabar Investment Advisors. Games 24/7 offers a variety of skill-based games, including Rummy Circle, India's largest online rummy game, and My 11 Circle, India's second largest fantasy platform. The company became a unicorn in March of 2022 and has established a reputation for innovation, personalization of consumer experience, and data science promise, and has over 100 million active users. Vikram, to tell you a bit about Conquest, we are India's largest student-run startup accelerator program based out of BITS Pilani. We're a team of 25 students who run this accelerator by ourselves. With me on this call, I have founders from the 28 of the most prestigious startups that we have selected from among the 3,000 plus registrations we got this year, who are a part of our cohort. So Vikram, let's start at the very beginning. What were your interests when you were younger, and how did you eventually land up with a degree in aerospace engineering from IIT Bombay?
Uh, Interests when I was younger. Well, I would say that'd be the same as probably 70-80% of Indian boys even today, which is mainly just cricket. Loved playing cricket. Actually played for my school team. Um, you know, and outside of that, honestly, I wasn't very interested in studying for the longest period of time until I had an excellent physics teacher. I was in 11th standard. Uh, and that's when I started to get interested in studying. I had a great physics teacher. I started enjoying math. And in India, at least at that time, I think today there's, all kinds of opportunities. But at that time, if you enjoyed math and physics, like engineering was the way to go. And if you were going to do engineering, then you wanted to go to the best place, which was IIT. And so it was really kind of very formulaic and mechanical. I don't think there was much thought put into it. And then at IIT, depending on the rank that you get, it's not like you know much about the engineering branches. You just choose the branch that's available to you. So that's pretty much how I got into aerospace engineering.
Then once you started engineering, how did that interest develop in you that I'm going to pursue economics from now on and get a PhD in economics?
Yeah, I mean, so because my entry into engineering and aerospace engineering was not one of choice, but more of kind of following a default path. I think by the time I was at the end of the second year of my program, I realized I really did not want to do or study engineering. And so I started looking for other things to do. Um, and I remember I used to be in Hostel 3 in IIT Bombay, and in the lounge, I always wondered about what is this pink paper that people read. Like I'd never seen the Economic Times before, and so I just one day picked it up, started reading it, found myself getting very interested in how the Reserve Bank of India sets monetary policy and what guides it, and that was the beginning of it. Then I started up reading more on economics, got more and more interested, started reading, somewhat semi-academic journals, and then decided like that's what I want to study, going forward. I still, I know I run a gaming business, but I still really, really enjoy economics. I follow it quite avidly, and I would say it's always been one of my favorite things to follow.
Great. And like I'm pursuing engineering myself, and as the saying goes, engineers end up doing everything other than engineering. So, how did you decide that you're going to start a career in the gaming industry? How did that happen?
Again, coincidence, I think. I used to, I think it was my second year or third year at my PhD program at NYU that I started playing online poker. It was just catching on big time in the US. And I was doing pretty well playing online poker. I was used to make I think I used to make enough money to pay my rent living in Brooklyn, in New York. Um, and I think that's around the time I also met Bhavin. He used to play a different set of games, very different set of games. He was more pool, solitaire. He used to play on Yahoo Games, I remember. Uh, and I think there was also a time when both of us were somewhat disillusioned by uh, the direction of academic economics, which we found very theoretical and not so much with practical applications as we would have liked, both me and Bhavin. And we kind of discovered our common love for games. I mean, in fact, we met in the computer science lab, in the computer lab at NYU, like both playing games. Uh, one thing kind of led to another. We started talking about it, and we were both fairly analytical, obviously, given our training and our background. Bhavin also came from an engineering school. He was at Purdue. Um, and we started doing some math on, uh, what this business looks like in the US and Europe. Around that time, I think Party Gaming went public. They had a $10 billion, about an $8 billion pound IPO. That's what they were valued at in London. And both of us kind of having roots in India, we seriously started considering that this gaming business could have, a very, very promising future in India. We started looking at opportunities in India. We eventually identified that games of skill is what we want to do. Yeah, I mean, it was, most of these journeys, most of these are not like they never happen to be a one day kind of bright light thing. It's step by step, one step follows another. You get more and more confidence in the idea that you have, the thesis that you have. And then one day you say, you know what, I think we're ready to take the plunge. That's pretty much how it all rolled out.
Yeah, talking about Bhavin in general, I had a question for you. When was that? Was there a point of instance in your journey? Was there a point when you decided that, okay, I know Bhavin, he's going to be my co-founder in this journey of entrepreneurship? Was there any such point? And what did you see in Bhavin as a co-founder?
I mean, as I said, I think the fact that we came from an engineering and then an economics background, like, by definition made us very analytical, I think. But much more important than that, and there's then the very fundamental kind of, we both had a deep love for games, different kinds of games, but we nevertheless had a deep love for games. But I'd say probably the most important thing was that me and Bhavin were friends before we became business partners. And as we were friends, we learned that we had very similar values that we hold even today, values that happen to be kind of a core part of our value system at our business. I mean, basic fundamental values like being decent to people, being fair to people. In fact, what Bhavin to a PhD program, I mean, his goal was to learn enough economics to try and do something about the massive amount of inequality that exists in the world. That's what brought him to the economics program. So some, very fundamental values like just having a high level of decency, honesty, humility. I think humility has been a big part of the value system of our business, and humility in both understanding that there's a lot that you still don't know even today. I mean, I'm 48. I've run this business now for 18 years. I can tell you there's still a lot more that I don't know than I know, and that will always be the case. And we bring that humility, both of us, to our work, where we always respect what the data tells us. If the data tells us some of our hard-held beliefs, our most cherished beliefs are wrong, then they're wrong. And so I think it's those kind of values, right, that at least for me and Bhavin, like have not just kind of kick-started our partnership in this business, but also held us in good stead all through thick and thin through these last 20 years.
Following up on that, you talked about certain values. Do you believe like these certain values are common in successful startup founders? Do you have a perspective regarding that?
You know, I neither me nor Bhavin we like to be prescriptive, right? Like just because something has worked for us doesn't mean that it works for others. What I can do is tell people about what's worked for us, and again, coming from the background that we came from, like we work very hard to build, very scientific culture in the business. Clear
Right.
goals, uh, clearly defining your goals, asking tough questions, asking, and when I say tough questions, it means, our questioning doesn't stop until you've reached a point where it's just very hard to ask more questions. Why did my revenues go up? Oh, my revenues went up because players are, the revenue per user went up. Okay, why did the revenue per user go up? The revenue per user went up because are players spending more time playing? Are they playing more games? Are they, spending more per game? What is it? And once you've answered that question, then the next question is, okay, why are they doing that? And down you go until you discover uh, something behavioral about what actually drives fundamental behavior, of players. And once you've learned that, then you can build on that. You can build on that in different domains. And that's how we run the business. And by the way, while you're running this very what we call why-centric journey, like asking whys, many times you'll come across answers that you don't like, and then you just accept them. And if that means that you were wrong on certain counts and sometimes dead wrong, you accept it and you move on to the next thing. And that's to us, that combined with objectivity, just being objective, always respecting what data says, is what we think of as kind of some of the core tenets of a scientific approach to running a business. And all of that, I would say, for us, has worked phenomenally well on every count. In fact, as we talk through this,
Right.
through the next 40 minutes or so, you'll find me coming back to two kind of themes again and again and again. One is, which we say consistently in our companies, that amazing companies are built by amazing teams. The team
Yeah.
matters more than anything else. Once you have the right, so what is the right team to us? It may not be the right team to everyone, is a team that believes in one, some of the core values that I talked about: being honest, being decent, being humble, being fair, but also a team that believes in, our scientific way of running business. That's not for everyone, but that's what's worked for us.
Great. And you're just talking about that. Since we're in a call that's full of early stage startup founders, so when you and Bhavin were starting up, what kind of problems did you face when you entered the market, and what was your approach on solving these particular problems?
Yeah, I mean, I think one problem we faced was very unique to gaming. So I won't spend much time on that, but that was really around convincing partners, whether it be banking partners, advertising partners, investors, that the core business model of playing games of skill for real money in India was legal. That was a huge challenge, but that's kind of very specific to our business. Um, the second biggest problem we face, which I think is common across most startups, right, was just finding the right people, uh, building the right team, and it's
Right.
just not the right team from the point of view of having the right skills, whether it be technical skills or marketing skills, product skills. I think those are important, but far more important when you're that small is having the right culture. Because the last thing you want, and this thing I can say with like, 99% confidence, I would never say 100% for anything,
Yeah.
is that you never want a rock star in your business who's an ass, you know. Because one bad apple,
Yeah.
even though they might be really, really good at what they do, but they can really mess up the team and the culture. Um, and so that was definitely a challenge. And because we were so kind of rigid in some senses on the kind of people that we wanted to work with, that made it even harder.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, the startup game is so much about perseverance and patience. Um,
Right.
the longer, as long as your core idea is sound and you happen to be, and a lot of things need to work right? You do need a lot of luck. It needs to be the right time for your idea. You could be off by 18 months, and 18 months is enough to take a startup down. So, assuming all those things are
Hmm.
right, that your idea is great and the timing for your idea happens to be right, then it's just a matter of that patience, perseverance, making sure you're consistent to the kind of culture that you want to build, that the people that you bring in, you know, fit into that culture and slowly, slowly build that team up. So that was definitely one of the hardest things by far.
Was there any particular instance or any point of time that you made some particular decision that paid off really well in the future that you would like to share with our founders? Like back 18 years ago when you started up?
Well, and I think, see, there'll be many. I'm sure there are many like that, right? But I would say, off the top of my head, when we started our business, most people don't know this, but we kind of wanted to build a portfolio of games of skill. I know today we run rummy, fantasy, and poker. But when we
Hmm.
started, like we were thinking of building a portfolio of games, and most people don't know this, but we started with rummy and chess, and we were going to add carom to the mix. Um, yeah, we just learned through data that one, chess is really prone to cheating in the online space. Carom doesn't monetize that well.
Hmm.
And we were quick to adapt and say, you know what? And I think that was a big decision point because we could have gone on building more games, trying more games, and we said, you know what? Rummy shows such excellent prospects, fantastic unit economics. Let's stay focused. Let's not try to do multiple games. Let's just focus on Rummy for now. And that was a great decision because
Hmm.
today we are the market leader in the Rummy space and have been, for a long period of time now. I think if we had gone down the other path of being more scattered and spread out, and that's particularly more important when you're starting up. You have a lot of ideas, you want to do 50, 100 things, let's try this, let's try that. But I think one of the most important disciplines to have in that earlier time is to sharp, consistent focus on that one thing that you believe will deliver value, you know, in time.
Right. And like back then, what were those early strategies that you used for user acquisition and monetization when you started up Games 24/7?
Yeah, I mean that's been one of our biggest strengths, right? I think we started with advertising on Google and Facebook, all digital. I mean, until 2000, we started our business 2006 until 2015. We were 2016 maybe when we were for the first 10 years of the business, we were just a pure digital marketing business, and we focused extensively on that. I mean, the beauty of digital marketing, whether it's Google, Facebook, or direct partnerships with digital partners or affiliates, is that, and that lends itself very well to our culture, is that it's all trackable. You can track the whole funnel from impressions to clicks to, uh, you know, landing page visits to registrations to conversions to if you're going to do remarketing, like how effective your remarketing is, to monetization. You can tie every dollar that you spend on digital marketing to whatever dollars it generates in revenues for you at the end of the day. And you can track that. I could tell you for every $100 that I spent 10 years ago on marketing, like, for that $100, how much money have I made over the last 10 years? I could go player by player and attribute that down. Um, so I think for N plus digital marketing allows you to be obviously very, very flexible in terms of, you don't need a lot of budget to start with,
Mhm.
and you can test a lot of concepts. That's the other beauty of it. You can test a lot. If you're going to run ads on TV or radio or billboards or any kind of um, ATL advertising, it's just measurement is hard. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's very hard. Um,
Yeah.
but with digital marketing, the fact that you can measure and test, you can identify a set of target audience that you want to kind of, you know, show your ads to,
Mhm.
and then test different ad concepts that you want to do. Um, I think it's a great way for a digital business, at least, and I would say a digital B2C business. Um, it's a great way to get going. I can't think of a better way to get started in just in terms of testing your core hypothesis.
Once you acquired your targeted user base, what was your strategy on retaining those particular users that you had acquired on your particular application?
You know, there's not one single strategy, right? And I think what we learned very early on is that different players or different customers have different desires, different pain points, different things that they care about. And
Mhm.
again, the beauty of the digital medium is that you don't need to do a one size fits all approach. You don't need to build one kind of store where everybody walks in, everybody has the same entrance to the store, everybody has the same experience in the store, no matter who they are. You know, my in the digital world, like our products will appear very different to different customers based on what they tell us about themselves as they take more and more actions on our platform. When they come in, are they confident enough to start playing for real money right away? Or do they need to spend some time practicing? If they're going to start playing for real money right away, then like what are the kinds of games that they're choosing to play? What entry fee levels are they choosing to play at? If they're going to if they're going to play free games first to practice, what we call practice games, what their performance is in the first set of games. How much do they play on the first day before they leave? So all of that data feeds into our understanding of who this customer is, which then drives subsequently both our conversion and retention strategies. So,
Mhm.
obviously, a lot of that is about just learning user behavior. But what we realized very early on is that if you really want to capitalize on all of that learning, you need to have systems. So we invested in technology. You need to build systems that allow you to personalize these experiences for users, right? Because 15 years ago when we started this journey, if somebody in our retention team or our, came up with a new idea and wanted to do something for a particular cohort of customers, they would have to go to engineering and say,
Mhm.
can you please build me this particular journey for this cohort of customers? And then a second time, for this cohort of customers, I want to do this. And for this cohort of customers, I want to do this. And we realized that, why have these guys go talk to engineering again and again? Let's just build systems that allow them to run
Mhm.
personalized journeys for different cohorts of customers the way they want to. I mean, today we run, as I speak, there are probably 1,500 plus personalized journeys that are being executed on our platform. Some of them will have simple kind of models behind them. Some of them might have complex data science AI
Mhm.
models behind them. Some of them might be just the AI models themselves learning over time and trying to figure out like what is the
Mhm.
best experience
Yeah.
for a user. But the journey started way back when we said, listen, the right thing, and if I had to give one message, I would say generalize, when it comes to learnings, what we did is, hey, we want to do things that are personalized. So let's build systems that allow us to do that instead of just personalize, like we cannot do it one step at a
Right.
time, but build a system to do that. We experiment everything, like we want to see when we come out with a new feature or a new promotion or new anything that do users actually like it? If they like it, how much do they like it? What makes them like it? What metrics did it
Mhm.
move? The only way to do that is to test, is to A/B test, and so we build our own experimentation engine, which allows both the product team and the marketing teams to run experiments the way they want to. Some experiments are simple, some experiments can be very complex, you know. So our investment was in systems. You get the right people who have the right scientific culture. That's been our approach. You
Right.
build for them the systems that allows them to use that scientific approach to really capitalize on it and deliver great value to our customers and then eventually to the business. That's how you build an amazing virtuous cycle.
Just talking about your journey in general. How was your experience raising your very first round? How did you find your first investor? And how were your subsequent funding rounds?
It was tough. I mean, it's always tough. Anybody who's been an entrepreneur, you know, knows raising funds is not easy. I mean, instead of telling you like what the experience was like, I can tell you what my learnings have been. You know, and I think the single biggest learning I would say is that got to have a very open mind. Um, you know, I mean, the investors who ended up investing in our business a lot of times are not the people that I expected would invest. You know, and I used to be kind of somewhat close-minded. Like if somebody brought, you know, to be honest, like at least a couple of investors that we had, early investors, were connections that came through my wife. And my wife said, "Hey, I have this really cool, great friend who's into finance and this and that, and why don't you meet him?" And I was like, what does your friend know about gaming? Like, what does he know about finance? Like, whatever, right? Like, why do I have to go meet this guy? And I took like 6 months before I finally met him. Not only was he an angel investor in our business eventually, he actually introduced us. He turned out to be good friends with the guys at Tiger Global, introduced us to Tiger, who actually led our first institutional round. I mean, there are so many stories like this that I can come up with where investors that I met, at least in the early stages, once your business is successful up to a certain point, then it becomes easier because you can always get bankers, they'll find investors for you. In the early stages, it's much harder. And I think just having a very open mind and a lot of perseverance, meeting as many people as you can, never kind of upfront judging and saying, "Hey, what's the point of meeting this guy? What could he possibly offer to me?" You know, like I don't really expect anything to come out of that. So it's a lot of time to be spent, but eventually, if you do that, as I said, that's just perseverance, one after another, meeting people. You know, it's not blind. You're not just going to go meet anyone. You know, you'll have some level of filter, but you know, my advice to people would be that the threshold on that filter should generally be low when you're meeting people and trying to raise funds in the early stages. Because even though many times what I realized, even though somebody may not eventually write you a check, like those conversations are usually enriching and will teach you something about what you may not be doing right or what you could do better. Um, you know, and keep going long enough, and eventually you'll get lucky. You'll meet the right people.
Great. Like from start raising your very first round to eventually starting up Games 24/7 Ventures, you have definitely come up a long way. Now, talking to you as an investor, what are the steps you take to evaluate a startup's viability, including market research, their team, their product validation? What do you look for in a good startup?
I'm not, you know, my profile is not of an investor, right? So I'm not the best person to ask that question. Um, I mean, I can again talk more as an entrepreneur, uh, you know, which is what my makeup is. And I think a lot of people, you know, including myself in the beginning stages, get very excited about certain ideas because they see a need in the market, um, or, you know, demand, you know, which is kind of one and the same thing. If there's a need, there's going to be a lot of demand. There's some gap in the market that they're trying to fill, you know. And that, or they see there's a certain product in the market, and they're like, you know what, they're doing a half-ass job. I can do so much better than that, you know. And I think that part is obviously the most critical part, right? What is that market need that I'm trying to solve for? Who is my customer? Why would they want this? And I think most entrepreneurs that you'll meet will be super passionate about these things. They'll some of the things are basic. You have to really understand who your customer is, what your market is. Our customers going to want this product. Um, but a lot of businesses, in my view, don't eventually work out because the unit economics of those businesses don't work. Which is basically, if I'm going to spend X to acquire a customer, am I going to make a lot more than X on that customer? You know, uh, and most businesses, like some businesses will fail just because there was no market need for that product, and you were wrong. But a lot of businesses fail because it's just very hard to get the unit economics right. And if I sitting where I am, if I'm evaluating businesses, the most important thing I look at outside of, hey, do you have a great idea? Can this become, a 20, 50, $100 million business? Obviously, that's, is there a big market need? But then the most important thing I always would look at is what are the unit economics of the business? Can it sustainably generate profits? Maybe the unit economics are not great now, but like, do we believe that unit economics will get better over time, and why will they get better? How does this business eventually become profitable? I mean, there are countless stories of businesses that raise money at crazy valuations and the unit economics don't work, and then they have to go through very tough cycles. So outside of everything that an entrepreneur must do, in terms of the right business idea and so on, I think it would do people a whole lot of good. And investors definitely look at that. Like that's probably one of the most important things that they look at. Like, what are the unit economics of your business?
Right. Like from your 18-year-old journey, a lot of startups out there don't even survive 18 months, as you had earlier mentioned as well, I think. So what are the common red flags you see in certain businesses that makes them don't last that long?
It's a tough question. There are many. I don't think there's a singular red flag, right? One is a lot of businesses just fail because they're not well capitalized. And it's just hard to raise capital for early stage ventures. So, I think just planning out your capital spend, making sure when you're getting into something that, you're not starting with 6 months of capital. You're starting with some 6 months of capital, then having some plan B that after 6 months, if I'm not able to raise some angel funding, then, I will be able to get more capital, maybe from my own pocket, maybe from friends and family. But I think just being adequately capitalized and thinking about it, like what adequate capitalization means, at least in those early stages, most businesses die because they just don't have the money to keep going. And then the following kind of steps are, if you have the capital, planning according to the capital. It can't be like I want to do A, B, and C, and the capital will magically appear. Whatever you can do is going to be a function of the amount of capital that you have. And then having a path to showing sustainability of the model, of whatever the business. One part of which is obviously showing that customers want it, but then also to be able to show that, this is a business that can generate good unit economics. Now that doesn't always, it's not always the path for every business, right? There are many businesses, Facebook being a case in point, Twitter being a case in point, which probably had no unit economics in the early stages, right? But those are businesses with such massive demand curves, you see like demand just exploding so quickly that as we know now, once you have that kind of demand and retention, like you see users coming back onto your system again and again and again, which was true for platforms like Facebook and Twitter and still continues to be, then that once I've got a sticky user, the monetization will eventually come. But those are rare businesses.
Right.
Not everybody can hope to have a Facebook or a Twitter kind of business. Most businesses will have to, will from the very early days have to demonstrate good unit economics.
And like a question to you that I have for you again is, over the years, the gaming landscape has changed a lot from mobiles to consoles. Everything has changed once the internet came. In such a changing market, how did you stay put and how do you stay resilient with your startup and your business idea?
I mean, I told you in the beginning, I would just come back to these themes again and again, right? You got to have the right people. There'll always be things that don't work out, things that go wrong, things that go terribly wrong. Markets suddenly change, tax rates go up. But as long as you have the right set of people that are bound by the right kind of culture, and the right culture may be different for different people. For us, that culture has been a culture of being scientific, like running your business in a very scientific manner, which we call the science of gaming.
Right.
Uh, but if there is that kind of a common culture that binds everyone, so if there's a setback, if there's a problem, if there is a challenge,
Mhm.
you know, your scientific tool set is what helps you. Like, okay, this is the problem. What is the problem? Let's define. I mean, we had a massive tax hike happen to our business less than a year ago, you know, and our mindset was, okay, there's a big tax hike. What does that mean for us? What's that going to do to our top line? What's that going to do to our bottom line? What is the impact on the customer? How do we reduce the impact on the customer? How do we reduce the impact on our business? What can we do on the product side to mitigate the impact? What can we do on the user journey side to mitigate that impact? Step by
Mhm.
step. Okay, these are 4, 5, 6 things we could try. All right. And they are based on behavioral learnings we have had from our users in the past. Now test all
Right.
of them. As you test them, you get more data, you learn more, and then you try new things. And that's when you have that kind of a culture, and you keep running into problems, and then you start having a belief that at the end of the day, whatever new changes happen, whatever changes happen in the market or with governments or this or that, at the end of the day, all of them can be translated into an objective problem statement that you approach scientifically and objectively, and that's it. That doesn't mean that all of those problems are solvable. If tomorrow the government said, "Hey, the tax rate on you is going to be 200%," yeah, I can't solve that problem. My business is dead. But to the extent that you don't have an atrocious, terrible problem in front of you like that, which can kill your business, you frame the problem and you solve it.
Great. That's a very insightful insight that you gave to me right now. But again, moving on, inside this market that you said, first you started off with one game, then you eventually expanded into other games as well. What advice would you like to give to our founders regarding this very same thing, scaling their businesses in general, in different countries, in different genres?
I guess most of the founders, entrepreneurs you're talking about are early stage guys. I would say at that stage, don't think new markets, don't think new products, new businesses. You have one. If you don't have one brilliant idea, if you're relying on 10 different things working out, you're wasting your time. That's not going to happen. you know but if you're working on one key insight that you have, one product, one thing that you think is going to work, then I would stay focused on it, committed to it, very, very focused, thinking about new products, new markets, in that earlier stage will more often than not kill you,
Mhm.
because it will distract you from the one thing that could have worked. I mean, it's already so hard to make one thing work. you know you don't want to think about, I mean, Amazon, Flipkart, all of them started as book selling businesses, right? They wanted to get one
Yeah.
thing right. They just wanted to get one single thing right. Same thing with Facebook, Twitter. Now Netflix might be doing many things, but they started doing one thing. They used to ship CDs to you. That's what they
Mhm.
started with. Okay, so you don't have to walk to a video store to get it. Like, well, it already moved to DVDs then, but they would
Mhm.
send it to you, right? Simple, one thing. Let's get one thing right, and let's get it really right. Let's become really, really good at it, and then think about new markets. That thinking should not come, new markets, new products, that early. New markets, like when you get there, we think about new markets. There are some companies that have executed a new market strategy extremely well, and usually the ones that work well is where they don't try to penetrate new markets themselves, right? And
Right.
here are new international markets where they try to find great international partners. I mean, if I'm to start a business in Brazil or the US, what do I know about the Brazilian market? You know, Like Brazilian entrepreneurs are going to know much more. They grew up there. I mean, your culture is a big part of your learning. You're growing up there. So the people who've done it best will go and find the best partners, the best companies in those local markets, but then try to imbue, basically imbue their culture into that company, the culture that's made them successful. For us, the power of our success is our scientific gaming culture. So if I was to go into new markets, I would find like great people in those markets. If I was to do new products that were very tangential to gaming, again, I would find great people running those businesses. I would provide them capital, and then I would want to imbue them with my culture, which I know is a winning recipe in the long run.
Right. I would like to follow up right now on what you said a bit earlier. You said your business is a scientific one. Now, talking about that, you are leveraging machine learning, AI in your businesses. These are relatively new technologies. So, from 18 years ago to today, how did you started inculcating these technologies inside your business slowly? What was your strategy with that?
At the end of the day, I look at all of these things, whether it be AI, ML, data science, as tools. You know, the culture was already there. The culture of trying to deliver personalized experiences, of building systems that will achieve our goals instead of us kind of trying to deliver on each and every goal was always there. And so when the whole data science, I mean, we started building our data science team, and it kind of actually happened very organically. We didn't have a data science team. We had one of the people in our acquisition teams, in our user acquisition team, who came from a, a mathematical statistical background. Um, Me and Bhavin started talking to him more about, hey, how do we leverage some of these things more? This is like, I have to say, this is back in 2013, 14, maybe more than 10 years ago. you know. And then we started looking into what was happening. I mean, data science wasn't a big term 10 years ago. It
Right.
just wasn't. We
Yeah.
started looking into how we can use some of these things. We started building models to optimize on how we acquired new users. And the data science team kind of organically evolved from that. At
Right.
some point, it so happened that there was somebody in our user acquisition team who was doing data science for that team. There was somebody in the user retention team who was handling the data science for that. There was somebody in the product team, and we were like, so it kind of organically evolved because that's the kind of culture we had. But at some point, it was like, you know what? It just makes sense to have a common data science AI team that's serving the needs of all our, you know, all our,
Right.
uh, all our departments. And so I think it was in 2000, I have to say 2017 or 18, that we kind of formalized about 3-4 years after this started. We formalized the data science AI team. Today we have like a 40-50 people team. But really, I think a lot of like my advice would be to not think of how do I use data science to maximize what I'm doing on my business? How do I use AI? Right? The first thing is, what do I want to do? What is it that I really want to deliver? And now, can I deliver this better? Can I do a better job if I was to use AI, if I was to use data science? You
Yeah.
know, like it's a weapon. You want a target. Otherwise,
Right.
you're just taking a weapon and shooting in whichever direction, right? Like first identify your target and then figure out if data science AI is the right weapon for that. It might not be. Just because those are cool words today, just because that's what everybody is doing, it may not be the best way to run your business. Maybe you can derive, a great growth path in the first few years just by running some basic averages or basic regression models. You don't need to go the whole hog and start building complex data science models. So, again, comes back to what do you want to do? That's what
Right.
that's what I would focus on first.
Yeah, that was very insightful, Vikram. So, I have one final question that I would have for you today is: if you would start up today in 2024, what would you do differently in your business, and what would your strategy be?
What would I do generically if I was to start a business today? I mean, all the things that I told you, you know, make sure there is demand for your product, like, be passionate about it because you need a lot of perseverance. You have to be crazy passionate about what you believe in, like really, really crazy. Because there's a lot of hardship involved in building a business. Plan your capital needs. What money do you need? Is this business that can sustainably make money? Validate your idea by talking to people. Unfortunately, at an early stage, you can't do more than that. Surveys are not very reliable. We've run surveys asking people, will they enjoy such a product? And they'll say yes, but when you launch the product, they won't. People are not very good at telling you what they might enjoy if they haven't seen it. You know, so there's a lot of risk taking. There's a lot of uncertainty. Plan well. Have a clear idea of the kind of people you want to work with. Stick to that. Don't compromise on principles. It might help in the short run, but you'll play in blood in the long run. You know. So yeah, and clearly establish what kind of a culture you want to build, and stick to that. Don't stick to it blindly. I mean, along the way, if you discover that some facets of your culture aren't great, again, be open-minded and be willing to change it. But that should be a very rare thing to do. Anyway, yeah, I mean, whatever I've talked to, this is what I would say. I would look at before I'm starting anything right now.
Great. I think the session has been very insightful, Vikram. We are almost out of time now. We really hope to see you sometime in our offline edition soon as well. Thank you so much for joining in today and just speaking out with our founders in this fireside chat.
No
I'd like to
problem.
thank you on
No
behalf of the
problem,
Conquest
sir.
team as well.
Thank
Great.
you.